My name is Brough. I'm a medium, and I've been giving psychic readings for 20 years. My mission is to demystify the mystical and educate the public that we do not die, and life is about growth. This is ARC, the Afterlife Research Center. So my guest today is award-winning journalist, investigative journalist at that, Tom Schroeder. I came across Tom's book when I was a teenager. He wrote a book called Lost Souls, where he tagged along and shadowed Dr. Ian Stevenson, a personal hero of mine, who was the head of psychiatry at the University of Virginia, but actually grew up in Montreal, where I'm from, and graduated McGill University, where I would have gone. So Dr. Ian Stevenson and Tom went to India and actually studied children who have past life memories. This work is absolutely fascinating, and when you hear this interview, I think it'll open up a whole set of new horizons for you. Thank you for joining me, Tom. You've been a person that I've been impacted by since I was a teenager. Being a host, one of the coolest things for me is I get to talk to all the people who formed my experience and knowledge about afterlife phenomena, and you're one of them.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you're a award-winning journalist who's been an investigative journalist and author and editor for something like 40 years. Is that right?
43, actually.
Wow. Okay, that's cool. Because this week I've been meeting a lot of young people that I get to say I've been doing something longer than they've been alive. But now the tables are reversed. Yeah. I feel young again suddenly.
I'm getting up there.
Well, and I've looked at your list of accomplishments, and in addition to all of the editing that you've done and the publishing that you've done, what's interesting to me is you have a myriad of books and articles, and only one of them out of all of your work has anything to do with the paranormal, it seems.
I guess you could say that my book Acid Test, about the development of psychedelic drugs as a therapeutic tool, could have some paranormal elements in it. But
yes,
I didn't. I think a lot of authors sort of have one subject that they keep coming back to over and over again. But because I'm approaching this as a journalist, sort of a general interest journalist, I just do things that I'm personally curious about. And I came across Dr. Ian Stevenson when I was doing a magazine story. And I just found him I was actually doing a magazine story about Dr. Brian Weiss, a psychiatrist who believed that when he was regressing his patients to sort of deal with some problem that they had, that they were going back to actual past lives. And so I did a story on him, and, I didn't find the evidence very persuasive because, when people are under hypnosis, they're asked to fantasize, really. They said, just relax and let your mind do what it wants to do. And they weren't coming up with past lives where they had knowledge that they couldn't have gotten from other sources. So when I was researching that, I came across Ian Stevenson's work, which, on the contrary, that he was looking for cases specifically where there was no easy explanation for how, and in this case, and this was one of the things that appealed to me, his subjects were small children. Sometimes just learning how to talk, who's like among their first sentences were, "You're not my real mom," or "You're not my real dad." And then they go on to describe their real mom and their real dad. And in some cases, they had enough detail eventually in their descriptions so that it matched eerily perfectly with some dead stranger that there was no real likelihood that the family had ever known these people or heard of them.
And of course, this was in the days before the internet and
right, it was before the internet, for one thing.
Yeah.
And there were plenty of people who were remembering very common, ordinary people who would not have had an internet presence even today, because, in some cases they were dealing with, poor people living in slums in India. And the other thing that impressed me about it was that the lives that these children were remembering, most of them had no element of glamour or excitement or celebrity to it. So, I mean, there was no kind of wish fulfillment happening there. I mean, no apparent wish fulfillment, because it wasn't like, they were remembering the life of a princess or a movie star or a Hall of Fame baseball player. Sometimes they were remembering the lives of people who were, in a far lower station in life than they were. So there was what Ian was doing was he was trying to rule out certain obvious motivations for coming up with these stories falsely, either through fantasy or wish fulfillment.
Right.
Or fraud, or intentionally misleading people. So I just got completely interested in that, and I called in up at the University of Virginia. I mean, when I came across his work, I didn't even know if he was still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So, I called up the university, and he actually answered the phone. And his first impulse was to say, I don't want publicity, because the only people I care about persuading are fellow scientists. And anytime you get a popularized version of this work, it only causes me more headaches.
So going back to Dr. Stevenson, he was a Canadian originally, like me. He grew up in my city, Montreal, and he graduated from McGill University in, do you remember if it was psychiatry or psychology or both?
And he actually went to medical school after that in New York, and became a psychiatrist.
Right. I remember he had quite a extensive scientific background. And that's something I've noticed in this paranormal research is a lot of these groundbreaking scientists who actually study psychic phenomena and afterlife phenomena seriously end up having more credentials than the actual critics of their work.
Well, he was the director of psychiatry at the University of Virginia, the chairman of but his interest, his sort of side interest in this, which it started out as being a side interest, compromised his position there. And it was like basically embarrassing the university. So basically they pushed him out. But he had a choice. He could either give up his research and continue on the normal career path, or he could give it up. And he gave it up, but he had a rich donor, Chester Carlson, who invented xerography, who basically funded a institute for him to work out of.
The symbology there is mind-blowing. The Xerox machine, it's copying and recreating photocopies, and then of course reincarnation. That's amazing.
I know, very good. Good observation.
So now you worked with Dr. Stevenson. So you get him on the phone and he says, I'm not interested in fame or glory. I just want to convince other scientists and propagate my research. How does that translate then to you writing the book Old Souls?
Well, it took me 2 years to persuade him. And, after that, at some point I wrote him a long letter, saying, I understand and I admire your skepticism about popularizing your work, but my interest in this is serious. And I sent him a book I wrote, the first book I had written, the only book at that point that I had written before. And he actually read it, and I think that changed his mind. I think he read the book and had a feel for who I was as a writer and as a journalist. And then he said, well, so I called him. I actually went up to see him at in Charlottesville. And he said, well, maybe you can come with me. I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to even do anymore. I've, promised my wife I wasn't even going to do any more research trips, but I might do like one more sort of valedictory pass in India and in Lebanon. And, if that happens, you can come with me. And so that's what we ended up doing I believe it was in 1997. In the fall and then winter of 98, we went first to Lebanon and Beirut area, and then to India, all over Uttar Pradesh, which is the sort of northern, that's where Delhi is, and Agra. And
wow. So that means in, I think, 99 or 2000, when I found your book in the school library, it must have been hot off the press at that time.
It came out in June of 99, yeah.
Wow. So I was one of your first Canadian readers, I bet.
Oh.
So now what I noticed in the book is a lot of these cases originated in places like India, Lebanon, South America. There were a couple in America, and I don't even remember any cases in Canada, but what is your explanation for that? Why are most of these children remembering past lives in those parts of the world versus here?
Well, this is one thing that skeptics focused on. They said, oh, well, of course, all these cases are happening to appear in places where reincarnation is an accepted belief. And that, might sound interesting at first blush, but then it's sort of like, well, wait a second. If the cultural belief that reincarnation is real could cause these cases to be manufactured, then why would the absolute cultural certainty that reincarnation is not real have the possibility of suppressing cases that might exist? And in fact, my son used to say, when I was a daddy, and, I treated it as a grammar problem. I said, no, when you're going to be a daddy in the future. He goes, no, when I was a daddy. And, so you can imagine if kids are having some kind of memory or some kind of connection with a previous life, when everybody's telling them that, they're wrong from the time they're 4 or 5 or whatever, as soon as they articulate it, pretty soon they just stop talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there also are cases in North America. I think that at the time I did the book, there just weren't cases that were as developed and as convincing because the details were lacking. If you don't have a lot of details, you can't have an impressive confirmation of matching the details of an actual life. And there were some cases where there were a lot of details, but those tended to be same family cases, like a dead uncle or a dead grandparent or something. And in that case, it's just too easy to imagine that possibly, there was wishful thinking among family members, that a dead family member.
And stories passed down that the children hear.
Stories passed down that they could have known about, even though these parents were saying, I swore I never told them about Uncle Johnny's falling off the roof. And yet that's the thing he said he remembered, And you say, well, maybe you didn't, but maybe you heard it somewhere, so it just wasn't as clean cut, even though the things the children said and the way the children behaved were identical to the cases in India and Lebanon. I mean, they just were carbon copies of those cases. They had all the same features. They presented the same way, when the children were beginning to speak. The children talked about it, some cases insistently for a few years. And then like when they were, sort of became social beings, like at 7 or so, they stopped talking about it pretty much. And since that time, since the book came out, there have been some very impressive American cases where, there were a lot of interesting details. I mean, one kid who remembered being a World War II pilot who got shot down in his plane, and he knew all sorts of details.
Little James, yeah.
Yeah, about the plane, et cetera. And unfortunately, those cases were muddied by the fact that the parents realized that this was something that could, get them a lot of attention. And whether they wanted it, they claim that wasn't why they did it, but they were, they wrote books that's sold, so it creates this motive for doing it other than getting the truth out, which I'm not saying that that's why they did it, but just if you're studying it and you're trying to eliminate all possible normal explanations for how this occurred, it just muddies the waters and it makes it less clean cut. But, some of these cases that came up in India were actually, every time there was a theory about an alternative explanation, you could find a case that kind of shot that down. Like, for instance, one common alternative explanation is that the child was fantasizing about having a better life. And so why, I have these dumpy parents in this crappy little house and, but as I said, some of the cases were the reverse, where people who were living pleasant middle-class lives were remembering, growing up in a slum somewhere. And people who had wonderful parents were remembering having abusive parents. So so there goes that one. The fact that another theory was, well, maybe parents are sort of encouraging the child and feeding him information, not even consciously for fraud, but because the parents liked the attention, that it brought them in the community. Well, then we run into a family where, they didn't want to talk to us. They were like basically trying to slam the door in our faces. And then when we finally got to talk to them, they're saying, well, when this came up before, that this caused our family all kinds of problems, and it, we haven't really recovered from it yet, and we can't write about it, and we don't want to talk about it, etc. And then, but in the next breath, the woman is saying, but everything that child said was true, and there was no way that that child could have known everything. And in the same case, here's another theory about why it might not be true, is that, people want to think that their loved ones have come back out of grief and missing them. And that, it's comforting to think they came back. So the same woman, I said, well, you think this little girl really knew this stuff about your mother that nobody else could have known? I said, well, did that make you feel better that your mother had somehow survived? And she said, no, it was creepy. I mean, here's this little girl who's like, maybe was my mother's soul. It just said it really disturbed me, so, and it's not just like one case that this proves it, but there are many cases. So that, I just felt that it was a very compelling thing to study. And I really appreciated Stevenson's approach, which was to try to find alternative explanations and then find evidence that contradicted that possibility.
Right. He used the scientific method of challenging the claim and trying to disprove it rather than try to prove your confirmation bias.
Now,
so,
and he didn't like to say whether what he actually believed, but over time it became clear that he absolutely believed this. And I think that after so many years, after decades of people not taking his research seriously, I think that he probably was a little bit over invested in proving it was true, as opposed to just doing the research, but I mean, who could blame them? You know, when you're surrounded by this remarkably compelling information and these kids who, you know, that's the thing, when you're actually around them and around the adults that they grew into, you just sense that they're not in this for anything other than that they had a profound emotional experience of feeling connected to a family that was not their own, and to feeling connected to a life that was gone now. Mm-hmm. And you just sense that you know, this is something that an experience to them. It was a genuine and legitimate experience that they had, and they didn't care if anybody believed them or not. It was just something that was part of their lives. And that, in a way, it was, and how do you sort of calculate that in a scientific way, that sense of it? You know, they did, one thing that happened was that, you know, they did have some psychologists come and like run tests on them to see were these kids psychotic or were they more suggestible. And it turned out that they actually were very, as a group, they were maybe just a little mentally healthier than a random subgroup of their peers, and they were less suggestible as a group. This is like based on somebody who came out and interviewed them and did psychological testing, et cetera.
Now, one thing that struck me about your work, your book, Old Souls, which covers this journey you took with Dr. Stevenson, is the only other paranormal book that I've read that has the same caliber and ease of reading as yours does, is by Deborah Bloom, who's a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist as well. And she wrote a book called Ghost Hunters, and it chronicles something of 250 years of scientific exploration into paranormal phenomena. And she tells it the way that you tell your story in Old Souls, which is exactly that. You're telling a journey, a story. So it's almost like you're reading a story, except it's not fiction. It's just so eloquently written. And I think that makes it really accessible for people who are maybe new to this and want to really dive in head first and get lost in the story and almost take the journey with you and Dr. Stevenson. Well, Tom, I really appreciate you joining me today, and hopefully we'll keep in touch and maybe talk again down the road.
I hope so, and thank you for such a intelligent and thoughtful interview. I really enjoyed it.
One thing that people ask me as a medium about reincarnation is, well, if people are reborn, how do you talk to the dead after they've died? And the answer to that is that sometimes people are reborn quickly, but that's very rare. Usually we have 200 to 300 years to have a summer vacation in the spirit world and meet up with our loved ones before we come back.
We were lucky to have him survive in 2015 because his whole body was shutting down. He had the stroke. He actually was on the floor for 6 to 8 hours by himself. He had driven me to the airport that morning, and I had flown out to Calgary to be with my son and to help him with his girls while his wife was off training. And that night, we got a call on about 1 o'clock in the morning that he was in the hospital. My girls were with him. I flew out the next day, and they told me that his body was shutting down, that he had double pneumonia, he had a stroke, and he was in heart failure. His kidneys were shutting down, and that they didn't know if he was going to survive or not.
First time we've met.
It is the first time
and
we've met.
You were given my information by a friend of yours, you were saying, who's also a medium.
Yes.
So you're somewhat familiar with this.
Yes.
That's really good when I sit with a client who understands.
Yeah.
So as I said, I keep my eyes closed. I'll tell you everything I see. I hold nothing back. That doesn't mean I see everything.
Yeah.
But I will do my best. Names come through as initials only, and I try to guess the name, but usually the phonetics are kind of on, but it could be like if I see Joe instead of John, you know, it could be like that. Mm-hmm. I already have a presence with you coming forward. Oh, they came with you in the car today. I hear sweetheart. I sense a contemporary to you, which in psychic language means someone in your age range, like in your generation. Did you, just yes or no, did you lose a husband?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm seeing the widow symbol. My mother passed young, and your husband would have been too young to have passed. Because I don't think he made it through his 60s even, it didn't seem. Or he was young at heart in a lot of ways. Because it feels like just as you guys come to this period where it's time to enjoy the golden years,
yeah.
he up and leaves. And he's so sorry about that, but he hasn't really left, you know that. He's joking, he says, shit, she was right. This place is real. He wasn't as big a believer as you, and all this stuff. So he's laughing about that. He's like, well, you know, women, they're always right. He's never far. He gives you kisses every night on the cheek when you go to bed. He's attempted to use electronics to get a sign to you. So if something went wonky with the TV or lights or something, that's him doing it.
Okay.
Have you noticed anything like that?
Sometimes.
Okay. By the way, feel free to use that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. There is a J name that's being acknowledged by him, but I think it's in the spirit world with him. Was there any Jack or John up there with him, or James?
Any Jean.
Jean?
Yep.
Is that him?
No, it's not him.
It's with him in the spirit world, though.
Yes, that would be his aunt. His Aunt Jean is the only one that I can think of.
I want you to just keep this on record and remember, because there might be ancestors you're not thinking of, and you well know how this works, so you'll find out who that is. It's a male.
Oh, it's a male, is it? Okay.
Yeah, with a J, not a G.
Jerry?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But he's just met with so many people. He hasn't been gone that long. They're still celebrating up there. Are we still in the first year?
Yes, we are.
He's, hold on, they're just calibrating because he's new at this and he's excited, and he keeps going to talk to you, and he's got to talk to me. So he's just sort of turning and talking to you, and I'm losing the signal. He's funny. He's just excited. You two were together forever, it feels like.
Yes, we were.
Like, were you high school sweethearts? Or,
yes.
Yeah. 17, 18, sort of?
Yep.
That's what he shows me, like my parents. You had more. I thought you had 3 kids. Why is he only showing 2 for some reason?
I don't know.
Do you have 3?
Yes.
Yeah. 2 are still. Oh, is it like 2 boys, a girl, or something like? Not in that order.
Yeah, it is like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's with all of them, eh? He's watching over all. He says, "Tell my kids I love them."
Aww.
He's telling me to tell his kids that he loves them.
Yeah.
He's like, I would never leave my kids. Like, I almost have tears coming. Because he's very fatherly, very loving as a father.
Yeah.
Some fathers are more cold.
Yeah.
He would like pick his sons up and give them a kiss. You know, he's like that. And his daughter's his special girl. Fathers and daughters, eh?
Fathers and daughters, yeah. There's 2 girls and a boy.
Oh, it's 2 girls? Okay, good. Yeah. Is one of them the baby, one of the girls?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that one seems to really link to him psychically. He's probably had more success reaching her in dream states as well as you. But the other 2, your son and a daughter, the reason that I mixed it up was because my family has 2 girls and I'm the boy.
Yes.
So, and you guys are the same age my parents were when they met.
Yes.
It's too overlapping. It's really hard for me. but it's the information that makes sense, not my interpretation.
Yes. Yes.
So he's very present. I don't know. I thought he had a problem in his system that led to complications with the heart. I don't diagnose him as having a heart problem per se. But it feels like his passing was quick. He makes me feel like he comes and visits, and I'm seeing the bedroom, and I don't know how close the door into the room is to the closet, but I'm going to the closet and the door.
Okay.
And I just saw a shadowy figure come in, like he's coming in that way, and he maybe knocks around there too. There's something going on, and it might even be a sign he's going to do for you.
Okay.
But I feel like you're going to get some validation that way. You're not scared by that stuff.
No, I'm not.
You'd be happy.
I would be very happy.
And he's working on it. He is working on it, and he's just got such love, such love. He's free, because he really hated being dependent on people at the end and having that complicated health issue.
I know.
But you know, I see that he had his life review, and one of the cool things for him was that he learned that the reason he died that way was because he spent his whole life taking care of others, and he had to learn the final lesson of letting people help him.
Yeah.
And it was those spiritual lessons are freaking hard, eh?
Yeah, no kidding.
But,
no kidding.
But that was his final lesson, and
Did he
all
learn
of
it,
you,
though?
he did.
He did learn
all
it.
of you really were amazing.
I also feel really bad that I was such the caregiver then, and making sure that he was looked after and that he wasn't in pain and all of that, that I wish I had talked to him more. I wish I had told him that, yes, he asked me at one point if he was dying, and I told him we were all dying. And I wish that I had said that it's very possible that we had talked, and I wish I had told him over and over again and stressed it so much what a wonderful life he provided for us, and that how lucky I was to have had him in my life.
And he's apologizing for his moodiness, but that's just near-death grief. And I feel like my spirit guide is shaking her head no, like he was a troop, he really handled things well. But for him, in his point of view, like he was a little more moody than he would have liked to be. So, because his family is golden to him.
I knew that too.
Beautiful. And now he's just shown me a birthday cake, and I can't understand if he's telling me that it's soon the birthday for one of his kids or something, or if it was his, or if his death when that was near a birthday, because there's an overlap somehow. And I want to go
tell you.
I almost want to say 15th or 14th, like in the middle of the month for some reason. What are you thinking?
The 5th is his birthday.
Oh, the 5th is his birthday. Okay. Because he's trying to get the number to me. And is it of April?
Yep.
Oh my God. So it's like in a couple of days.
Yes.
Okay. Celebrate him on his birthday, the 5th, more than you do on the day he died, because he had more of these than he had deaths. And think of him then, and he will be with you on that day. He keeps trying to get the C initial over to me. I don't know if it's Chuck, Charles, or Carl, or something like that. I can't quite grasp it. It could be Chris, but that's my brother-in-law's name, so I doubt.
No, it's Chris.
And is
It
Chris,
is Chris.
him or his son?
His son.
Okay. Chris, it's his son. So it's like so many overlaps with my family that it's
I know,
hard for me
I
to
know.
get through, but we're working through it.
Yeah.
So he just wants to tell his son something. So hold on, I'm going to get this proper. He's congratulating his son, and it's almost like a whole new chapter in life. But he's highlighting through love. Did your son have a marriage or a baby after or is that on the horizon possibly, would you say?
No.
Okay. Is he potentially capable of having a new chapter in his love life, though, your son?
I don't know.
Because this could be a prediction, eh?
Okay.
And if it is, it's not far off. It's like in a year or within the year.
Okay.
So you should be hearing news, because your son's love life is turning around, and it could end up being the partner or the one that he has a baby with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it could go far. Yeah, Chris.
I don't think a baby.
Very special. Very special to Chris. Yeah, well, whatever the next step
Yeah.
would be for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like he's had...
Could it be work related?
No, this
No.
is love life. But work
Okay.
is part of it too, but it's not what he means in
Okay.
this particular instance.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll see. So when I see a new chapter in love, it's either meeting someone that's going to be a partner, if they have a partner, getting married, if they're married, buying a house, if they have a house, having a baby. It's whatever the next step for them. That's how it comes through to me.
Okay.
But he's highlighting that as the next turnaround. And something's making me feel like it should be obvious to you that that part of his life could use a turnaround.
Yes.
Like that should be obvious to you.
Yes,
and
it is.
That's what your hubby is trying to convey here.
Okay.
And he's working on it from his end. But he loves his son. I don't know. He's kind of laughing. He's saying, my boy is a lot like me. Like, even if mom shows him this reading, he's not going to accept it.
No.
He's like, oh, Ma, what are you embarrassing yourself for? You know, he's kind of hard-headed like his father.
Yeah.
So he's laughing about that. Now, he puts a letter above himself, which means it's either his name or it's someone that he's with that's very, very, very close to him from his family history. And the letter is the letter A. So do you know who that might be up there with
His
him?
father.
His father, okay.
Alex.
Alex, okay. Did he lose his father too soon, or was that a big death for him?
It would have probably been a big death for him. It was
Yeah.
his dad.
Yeah, because
He's in his 80s, so.
oh, but he loved his dad.
He loved his
I
dad.
feel like his dad was the one who came to get him. Because he puts the name above himself like it was like a real protectorate to him. Someone very special, so I'll accept that it's his dad for
Yeah.
sure. He's okay, so he's showing me something. He's trying to show me something that I don't know if I'm getting it clearly from him. So it's like he shows me a pillow, and you know how you can have pictures printed onto fabric? Mm-hmm. So I can't tell if what he's trying to do is show me that you've got the picture in a frame next to the bed, if that's a symbol he's merging the two, or if literally one of the girls is going to silk screen a picture of the two of you or something on a pillow as a gift or something. But he's showing me something like that. I can't tell what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. But he is very much at peace. He just keeps throwing names at me. I don't love when they do that, but I can't control it. So the other thing, he's showing an H. He's putting across to me. I think I'm interpreting that more like a Henry or Harold or something like that. You see, he's new over there, it feels. And I feel like he's just been getting to reacquaint with all of his ancestors. So in a sense, you could interpret what's happening now as he's telling you that he's not alone. And you'll find all those names in his history.
Yeah.
Some of them he didn't meet even, but they're his family.
Yeah.
He's got this sort of beautiful recreation of an old car up there. It looks like it's in a teal or a blue family color.
Okay.
And it really looks like an old car. I can't tell if it's a Mustang or if it's I know they're very different cars,
Yeah.
Mustangs and Chevys, but
Yeah.
I honestly can't tell because I'm not a car person. But it reminds me of something beautiful like that. Did he have an affinity for those types of machines?
Yes, he had to a Mustang, yeah.
To a Mustang, and was it a blue color?
I think so, yeah. It was blue and white, I think.
Yeah. You'll find old pictures.
Yes.
And if you do, please just take your phone, snap a picture,
Okay, and send it to
Dina.
you?
Yeah.
Okay, send it to Dina.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because these are the things we overlay.
Okay.
But he's recreated things up there, and he's even got a house that, when you visit him, you'll see him there. You'll be there with him. The landscape feels like it's somewhere where there could be waterfalls, but Canadian waterfalls, not tropical or foreign, like sort of like a rocky sort of forests and things, just beautiful. Getting I see the front of this sort of building, this house that's sort of manifested or recreated there. It's got like stone, beautiful stone slabs, and like a wraparound porch. It's like quite nice. It's almost like the house he wished he could have built you.
Yes, he likes stone, and he
It's modern and open, but it's rustic. It's really cool, and that's where you'll meet him, because you can see them and meet them in your dreams before you pass. You don't have to wait to die. You leave your body sometimes. Everybody does.
Yes.
And he's working on it, getting you up there. He's working on helping you have a dream visitation, because you've been wanting those. Did you have one already?
Yes. Nothing like that, though. It was different.
Different. It might have been overlaid with some of your grief.
Yes.
Because there was something not pleasant about that particular dream. He was trying to break through, but your grief overlaid some hallucinations over top.
Okay.
But it'll be beautiful, and you're going to have it closer to the summertime. I'd say roughly June, July is when you'll probably get success with that, is my prediction. Is that close to an anniversary for you, or a birthday for you?
June is when he passed.
June's when he passed. Okay, because that's when he'll really press through.
Good.
Was it close to the 13th or 12th of June?
14th.
Yeah, because he didn't really know the day, but he's like, it's around the 13th, he said.
Well, and he could have passed on the 13th because he had a pacemaker, so
Right.
maybe that kept him.
So the heart was a thing, though.
Yeah, the heart.
But it wasn't the leading cause, but the heart was an issue, and there were complications from other things.
Yeah, and it probably was the leading cause.
Yeah, you would say? Okay.
He had a stroke, and he was in heart failure. His kidneys were shutting down, and that they didn't know if he was going to survive or not. They put him they induced a coma, and he was in it for about 10 days, and we didn't know if he would come out of it. But he did, and the minute he started coming out of it, he started to recover really well, as much as he could. He was left-handed, and he never regained the use of his left hand. And he ended up, again, getting a defibrillator and a pacemaker. And for the next 3 years, it was a lot of going to doctors, and they kept telling us how very ill he was. And he was very weak, and he certainly had changed from the man that he was to somebody who was, he just had a hard time dealing with his illness. But I truly believe that those 3 years were a gift to myself and to his family, his 2 girls and his son. But then in 2018, he had a stroke in April, and ended up in the hospital. And we were at the hospital until he passed away, basically. He had 2 more strokes after that, so in total he had 4 strokes. And they just told me at the hospital, and I stayed day and night with him, and in very few nights did I come home to sleep. And then we had problems at the hospital, and I wasn't really happy with what they were doing or their care, but that's why I stayed there.
Because that's what I said. I'm like, his heart gave out, but it felt like he was sick.
Yeah.
So I guess we can say, do you want to clarify what his cause was?
Yes, well, he had a stroke, he had multiple strokes, and it was caused from blood clots from the heart.
Blood clots. I was going to say embolytic, yeah. Poor old boy, because the strokes were causing his motor functions to not work too. But he makes me feel like he wasn't suffering at the very end. Did he just lose consciousness, or was he asleep?
I took him to hospice, so they kept him.
Yeah, very good. They treated him real good.
They did treat him good.
Like, I feel like they were really great at that. Which hospice was it?
In Bear here.
Yeah,
it's
good.
Fabulous.
It's a good one, eh? So
Yeah.
I worked with Hospice King Aurora.
Yes.
And when I was young, and I worked with a group of teenagers, but he was in a real good one. He makes me feel they took perfect care. Now, all of you were there for him.
Yeah.
Everybody came through.
Yeah.
He has no regrets, eh? He's like me. I don't get the idea of regret. It doesn't make sense to me. Some people, I don't know, maybe I just came in life having that lesson learned from another life, and he's the same. He doesn't have any regrets. He's making a joke. It's like, I don't even have money hidden in the walls. I have nothing for... Now, did you choose to stay in your house?
Yes.
Yeah, he said he's happy with that. He's okay with it. There might come a time where you choose to move in the distant future, but it will only be when you're ready. You're okay to stay. The grandkids come, eh?
Yeah.
They need that place. You have the rooms for them. I don't know why, but he's joking about something with the yard. So, like he wants you to get people to come and mow and do all the things that need to be done. And, hire some boys and get them in there, and you can do the gardening. He's like telling you what to do.
Yeah, that's him.
Because I feel like he would have done that for you. That would have been his thing.
If he could.
Yeah. But it's like you hire the right people, and he's happy about that. He's telling me something about the roses that he's going to put energy into to help them grow. Every night that your head goes down on the pillow, even if the TV's on or you're awake, he just kisses you right on the cheek. So some people...
I need to be more aware of that, because can't say I feel that.
I know. You can't, because it's not physical. It's it's out of phase with our dimension, but he feels it, and he's there with you. So people, sometimes the spirit people only come once a week or something. He's like, he visits you every single day. You're his honey.
I love that.
He loves you too. He loves you too. He's working hard at this, but he keeps on turning to you and talking to you.
Oh.
And I gotta say, come on, focus on me, yell at me. But he's new at this, eh? Like your girlfriend had him come through a little bit? Or she had a dream, is that right?
She could, yeah, she could.
But he's sort of new at this still. Doesn't feel like he's really done this officially, in a funny kind of way. I think he was surprised to even be there. It's like right when the movie comes to an end, he's like, oh, wow, I'm still here, okay. Was he skeptical of this sort of thing in life? Or just not his cup of tea? He just didn't look into it much?
Of psychic?
No, the afterlife.
Oh, the afterlife. He was very private about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was surprised to be standing outside his body and go over to the spirit world with his dad.
Yeah.
Did you prepare or have some form of a question or a message for him that you want to try posing, and I'll see if he gives an answer?
I have Dina asked me to put 5 questions together, and I did.
Good. You can read them, and okay. I'll tell you if I get responses.
Okay.
Because I really feel that they're based on your husband in the spirit world, because he's the main thing communicating today.
Yes.
Yeah. He sees everything. He sees everything that you guys do. But I think part of it is that we've got him on the spot. He's a little shy. Or maybe he's private. So he's sort of, with the cameras and me and everything, he's sort of weird about talking to me. So I want you to coax him a bit, and we'll see if he can respond.
I wanted to know if he gave up living like the hospital said. He did.
Not consciously. It wasn't a conscious choice. It was a soul's choice. So it's almost like you don't mean to. It's sort of, you drift into it, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Did I make the right decision by taking him to hospice?
100%. He, at the end of his life, and this ties into the Moody stuff and everything, he of course wanted to be at home in the sense that at least you can not think about it so much there. Like when you're in a care situation, you have no choice but to face the fact that you're that you're passing or you're at the end of your life. And that was, I think, something that he worked through. But that was part of that spiritual lesson. That was such a big message for you today, where he had this lesson to learn to let people take care of him, which was tough for him. But he really learned it. So he'll never have to do that in any other lifetime again. He would not have had the drugs that he needed if he was at home. They wouldn't have been administered the right way in the way that they were. He's like, we could all be so lucky how they treated him.
Yeah, I took him from the hospital, which I didn't think gave him the care that he needed, to hospice.
Good, that was the exact right decision.
Sheena had a wedding at hospice before he passed. Before August, it was in June. And does he recall that? Was he present in that, even though I didn't know if he was?
He was present in that. He was peripherally present, but when he left his body, he was able to relive it from a superposition and be there and sense everyone's thoughts and be present with you. It's a little difficult to explain. Time is not linear like we think, so we can come back and relive things after. And he most definitely did that. Okay.
Did he always know that I loved him from the bottom of my heart?
Top to bottom. Top to bottom. And you know that he was the same. You two are like soulmates. You know, and it wasn't always easy. That's the thing. People have to realize it's not easy.
Yeah.
But nothing is. And the love was what made it worth it. And that's the feeling I had.
Do you know what? It comforts you to know that you can connect with the person that you love, the people that you love. You know, it's answers some questions and makes, you know, I always wondered if taking him to hospice was the right. And when he said 100%, it certainly made me feel a little bit more at ease, I guess, because I always feel as though, you know, taking him to hospice was, it's hard to let go of somebody. But he told me a lot of good things, and it was Wayne, absolutely, and talking about his kids, and yeah, it's all good, it's all good. I really enjoyed that. I felt he made a connection, and yeah. I always wanted to know what it was that he loved about me, but he could never tell me.
Let's find out. I'll see if you could word that now.
Yeah.
Well, you're cute. It's a cuteness, and it's ineffable. It's also a soul connection, and he felt it was his responsibility to protect you. That's the nature of how his love went with you.
Yeah.
It was like cute, protect, and I can tell he's the type of person who means what he says and says what he means, and he's simple in his wording. He's not exactly speaking Shakespearean to me today. Like, you can tell even from the reading that it's sort of, every message is a burp, 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 burp. Do you recognize that as his personality, though?
Yeah.
Good, because that's what I have to work with. And so, like, you're his wife since teenagehood, right? Well, not wife since, but you know.
Yeah.
And even you can't describe why.
Yes.
So how do you think I feel?
Yeah.
But he is, I think he showed it to me. You are cute, and he very protective of you. Did you recognize those energies with him?
Certainly protective, yeah.
Yeah.
I always wanted him to put it into words what he loved about me, but he couldn't. He couldn't put them into words to me. So
yes, yeah, he was more of a show you type, like a show me type.
Yeah.
I'm here, aren't I? Is the feel?
Yes.
That's what I just heard.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm here, aren't I? That means I love you. I felt interesting with Lynn because her husband wasn't much for self-expression, and whenever a medium has to deal with a spirit who can't emote or express themselves openly, it's a little like dragging a horse through the mud. And I felt that way for sure, but you know, when you're reviewing these sorts of things and thinking about it from the medium's perspective, I don't know who's coming to me, I don't know why they're here. So his soul was able to identify himself as the husband. He was able to identify his cause of death. He was able to identify his children and sort of the framework of his life. And I thought that was pretty cool. But I would like to work more with Lynn in the future and see if I can't pull him through even further. And something about him tells me he was gifted in the material world, and so he's still trying to figure out exactly what to do with himself in the spirit world. It's kind of like being retired and not knowing what to do with yourself, because you're free and you don't have obligation. And in some ways that's a wonderful thing, and I find myself very happy for her husband.